PC, and then all you do is you just mute yourself, but you also turn down the volume completely. You mute it. Then you can, my iPad is where I'm listening to you and all, and that's good. So that's why there's no feedback.
Excellent. You learn something new every day, right, Al?
Dr. Vinokur, would you please stop the video on, I'm starting to see double on one of your screens.
It's
You want me
right.
to stop the video? Okay.
Pick one. Yeah, the flag's nice. The blur is nice. Whatever you.
Yes, I can do that. Sure. No problem.
Is it me or can I not hear anyone?
I don't think anybody said anything yet. And I'm going to mute myself.
Al's talking. Al's talking away, but he's on mute. So is it me?
No.
I hope the meeting goes better than that.
Now I hear him.
Well, hey, Al. Okay.
Where was I
Good.
muted? At what point? I don't want to repeat myself, but
The whole team, the whole thing. I think
I was muted from hello.
Yes, you are.
I didn't have much.
you had us at hello, Al. Yeah.
Right. So for the construct of the meeting, just to let everybody know, this is going to be a shorter meeting than normal, no presentations as such. We're going to be going over the legislation currently in front of the Senate and the House. Also some legislation that has been filed that we have not talked about, but just to basically describe what it is and why it is, perhaps. And then we're going to be going over the broad aspect, just start the ball rolling on next year. We've got the study going on, and we're going to be, we need to start early to try to get a functional model ordinance in state, work together to try to work out the bugs. I've got some ideas, and I'm gonna open up for everybody to just begin the conversation, but we have to be thinking of what we're going to put into the legislation next year, what can we get passed, and how we're going to bring all parties together going forward to eliminate some of the, for lack of a better word, crap that's going on in the zoning sphere right now with the lack of education and knowledge on the part of a lot of zoning boards. So I think we got over 30 people, so let's start. Introduce everybody who may be here. First, from the healthcare district is either Dr. Andrick here, or is Darcy Davis here, or Courtney Phillips? Anybody here from the healthcare district? They're saying this is just legislation on zoning, we're out. Okay. Dr. Jennifer Atenito from FAU. Jennifer, are you here? Okay, I saw Tom Baird, municipal attorney working with a number of municipalities. Tom, you're here. I saw you up.
I'm here, but I have no video.
Okay, well, Tom, you know we're gonna miss you.
Which is a good thing.
Yeah, I know about that. Turner, I saw you're here. Turner Benoit.
Hi there. Thanks, Al.
Hanley Foundation. Ann Berner from South Florida Behavioral Health Network, SFPEN. Anybody here from SFPEN? Okay. Ariana Ciancio, I saw you were up. Ariana from Delray Beach.
I'm here.
And I always forget your title, other than you got all kinds of letters after your name, but a community advocate, something, community.
I think they called me a service population advocate.
Service population advocate. I won't remember it. Okay. Service. I'm going to write that down. But welcome, Ariana. Uta, are you here? Uta Gasiak from Florida Behavioral Health Association.
Hey, Al, I'm here.
Hi, Uta.
How are you?
I'm good.
Good.
Thank you for asking. Lori Holsclaw Hunt, or Michael McKeough, who's here from Oxford House.
Yeah, I'm here, Al.
Okay, Michael, good to see you. John,
too.
Palm Beach County Community Service Department. John,
Julie Kerr, and I wanted everybody to take note of Al's famous last words. This meeting will be shorter than usual.
okay, I'm not a betting man, so I'm not gonna bet, but it will be shorter than usual. And if it's not, everybody can play hooky for the next meeting in March. Okay, yeah, somebody's going yes, okay. Heidi Matheny or Michael Cabot, or who's here from, oh, Heidi, you're here, good, from FAR?
Heidi's here, Josh is here, I'm here, and Mike is here. And I don't know, Cabot is probably coming.
Okay, Susan, I was gonna introduce you separately, but you're introduced, okay.
Thank you.
Attorney for FAR. Okay, now, who's here from from the department? I know Kelly Lee is out on the road. I spoke to her earlier, doing a site visit.
And Molly's here.
Oh, okay. Hi, Molly.
Molly McKinstry here, Chief of Staff, and I think we've got Jeff Cece on as well.
I didn't hear that, but,
Hey, good afternoon, Jeff Cece.
oh, hi, Jeff. Good to see you or hear you. Okay, Jeffrey Lynn. Jeff, I know you're up. I saw you there.
I'm always here, Al. You know me.
Land use attorney and one of the private attorneys who knows the most about 65 D30, which keeps most people up at night. Okay. Nancy.
You always constrain me that, Al. I know a little bit more than that, but that's okay.
No, I'm just trying to, be modest for you, sir.
I'm not modest. That's why I gotta sell tickets.
I'm gonna mute y'all for a second. I've got Representative Crusoe on the line. I'm gonna take this call. Representative, how are you? I'm good. I'm just starting the task force meeting. But what's up? What can I do for you? Okay. Wait, you're talking about are you talking about the section that eliminates not the see, there's two sections. The tax one is the tourist taxes. Is that what you're talking about? What does it mean he doesn't have that in his budget? To the state? Okay. 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 And he's calculated that is solely from sober homes, recovery residences, 1.6 million? 4.6 million just from recovery residences. Okay. Okay. Let me find out whether that's overall. No, it's okay. That seems like a lot. But here's we can drop it. I mean, I don't want to kill the bill on the basis of that one section. But I will tell you that, yeah, those taxes violate federal law. So, well, you're timely because I'll discuss this if we have anything to let you know about that. But you're talking about, you're not talking about transient. You're talking about tourist taxes. That first section, 212. Right? Okay. All right. Okay, like bed taxes, tourists. I'm surprised that it's 4.6 million from recovery residences, and that's just state. So maybe we can eliminate the local ones and just take out the state one. I mean, eliminate the state one and leave in the local ones. But anyway, that's not a, I don't want to see the bill killed on that. There's too many other good things in there. So can I call you later today or tomorrow and discuss it if I have anything to add? Okay, and yeah, we definitely, whatever you need to drop there, yeah. Good. Yeah. And I'll ask the folks at the meeting, because that does sound high for the state alone in terms of recovery residences, because there ain't that many of them. So, but let's, yeah. What's that? Right, right. So, anyway, let me get back to the meeting here and we'll catch up either later today or tomorrow. Definitely talk about this more, but thank you. Thank you for letting me know. It's a good time to do that. I'll let everybody know here on the task force. All right, thanks. Bye, Mike. Okay, wow. This has become more interesting, but we'll talk about this. Where was I? Neil McGarry, are you here, Neil?
I am.
Okay, Florida Certification Board. Nancy McConnell from Rebel Recovery. Nancy, are you with us? Okay. Reach out to Nancy, please, at some point, just to see what, okay. Dr. Moran, Robert Moran, Center for Recovery, Family Center for Recovery Medical Director. Dr. Moran.
I'm here.
Okay, hey, Doc. Dr. Rachel Needle, psychologist extraordinaire. Dr. Needle? Okay. Houston Park, DOH, Florida DOH. Houston? Okay, Terrell Pyburn, I see you're up there for Coconut Creek City Attorney.
Hello,
and,
good afternoon.
And part-time guru for Delray Beach. Susan Ramsey, I see you're here. You already announced yourself. Terry Shapiro, Miami Invited Recovery, Executive VP. Terry? Okay. Nikki Soda, are you with us, Nikki? Okay, Dr. John Simonides, FSAM.
Hi.
Hi, Dr. John. That's a rock and roll reference too. Alton Taylor, DAF, Drug Abuse Foundation. Alton, are you with us? Okay, Jan Toman, Project Opioid, South Florida. Jan? Or anybody?
Hi, good afternoon,
Project
everyone.
Opioid?
Yeah, good afternoon. This is Suzanne Aldana, right? South Florida Opioid Alliance, part of the Greater Fort Lauderdale Alliance.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I saw Dr. Vinacore, Alliance of Delray Residential Associations.
Yes, hello, I'm here.
Okay, now, I don't think Jennifer Webb's with us from Florida Floridians for Recovery. Is there somebody from the organization? Floridians for Recovery, okay. And Greg Weiss, Commissioner Greg Weiss. Greg, are you here? Anybody from the office? Nils, are you with us? I know they have an all day, they've got their meeting today, so they're probably in session. I saw Richard Worms from the Office of the Attorney General. Richard, you with us?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm going to have a question for you regarding one of the parts of the legislation that I think we're having a little miscommunication about, and maybe we can work it out.
Roger that.
Eric Urlano, Integrity Billing. Eric? Okay. And welcome everybody else who's on the call. And this obviously is open to the public, and we welcome you. We're going to start with some stats. We just got the State Medical Examiners Commission report from 2022. It came in 2 months late. I'm not going to editorialize on that at all, but we have it. And we sent you out, that'd be this yellow one over there. There you go. I actually was gonna do that last, but
Okay.
okay, we'll do it now. Okay, these are the numbers for the state. We went down approximately 3% in the state. But some jurisdictions went up. And okay, of course, fentanyl is the largest contributor to opioid overdose deaths. At 91% has fentanyl present or cause. And it's fentanyl is the leading cause of drug-caused deaths. I believe 5622 are all causes. If you look down, these are 6 districts, there are 25, 6 districts of note. We went, if you recall, those of you who've been on this task force, we used to be #1, a dubious honor, #1 in opioid overdose deaths in the state. We are now 5. Another district has overtaken us. We'll go down the list. Pasco, Pinellas County, they're out of control. I mean, in our worst as the epicenter, we were 647 in 2017. So I just can't imagine 765 opioid caused deaths, up 6% from 2021, which I believe was up about 40% from 20. Broward County went down 6% from 613 to 568. They still are well over 100 more than us. Palm Beach County, we went down 17%. Our numbers from our medical examiner were 419. We've got the raw data. This is all raw data, 1 death, one cause. We've caused opioid if there's multiple causes, and fentanyl specifically. But we're 431, which is down 17% from 519 in 2021. Again, these are last year's numbers. Got some interesting news for this year. We have almost complete medical examiner numbers, which we'll talk about in a minute. Clay, Duval, Nassau counties, 543, up 1% from 21. Hillsborough County, up 14%. So they've got a spike going on there for 2022, from 450 to 525. And I just wanted to add, although they are behind us, but not by much, Escambia, Okaloosa, Santa Rosa, and Walton, which would be the Panhandle, they're up 13% from 323 to 371. So they've got a problem, and we should be tracking both the department, FAR. We need to be tracking whether there are resources in those areas where the numbers are still high or going up. Any questions about these stats? You know, I mean, although it's an incredible number. Hats off to Palm Beach County, because we were down. Well, let me go to the next slide, which would be Palm Beach County, our 3-year progression. You know, the pressure's on Marianne. I hope you all are sympathetic, because I sure am, because she's got to go on a dime and do this. So first, we're going to look at 2021 to 2022, our opiate overdoses, and these are deaths by our medical examiner. Now, obviously, in 21 and 22, there are no pending cases, but I wanted to put 21 up there because we were actually down 13% from the year before. We had 519. In 2022, you saw the numbers, 431, which is 78% of the total overdose cases that the medical examiner reviewed. So they had drug overdoses in general, 553, specific opioid, 431. Fentanyl analog cause or presence is 93%. So that's really driving this epidemic. I mean, at least the death toll, not the epidemic of substance use disorder or opioid use disorder. So we declined 17% in 2022 over 2021. So we've been on a steady, significant decline. And in 2022, there were 40 xylazine overdose deaths, which is non-opioid. And then the fentanyl analogs, NPE it went from 0 to 20, and I believe it's back down to 0 now. We'll see in the next slide. Fluorofentanyl, similar to fentanyl, there were 6 in 2021, 100 in 2022. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so now let's look at the 22-23 comparison. So we just went over 22. In 23, we have a snapshot, but it's getting close to being completed. There are only 23 pending cases. The ratio of total drug overdoses and opioid overdoses, 529, 399, is equals 75% of total OD cases. Okay, so projecting 75% of the 23, we have a projected 416 total, which again would be another decline from last year of 4%. That's again a snapshot. It's not firm yet. We probably won't have complete numbers until between March and May. And again, total with fentanyl and fentanyl analog cause or presence, 92%. So again, we're still, the engine is fentanyl. Looking at xylazine, in 22, it shows 24. I guess that's an updated number. We've a little bit above that this year. We have 31. We went from 9 in NPE to 0. And we went from 87 fluorofentanyl. But by the way, fluorofentanyl is an analog, so it's included in the gross numbers. We went from 87 in 22 to 65 in 23. Hopefully, we will get the state numbers in November like we ordinarily do, rather than late January, but we'll have a better idea of how we're doing in the state in 23 when those numbers come out. Any questions on any of the numbers? Anybody have any comments? Okay. We have an unscheduled stop briefly because thank you, Heidi. Heidi sent numbers, updated numbers for February for FAR, and I just wanted to share them with everyone, or at least have Heidi share them with you all. So we're going to put it up on the screen, unless Heidi, you want to share it. You're muted, Heidi.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I can share my screen if you'd like.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Okay, can you see that?
Yep.
All right, perfect. Hello, everyone. So our statewide numbers, certified providers so far are 231. We are growing rapidly. Our bed count now is 9,203. We have 1,884 units. This is for February, up to date, February 6th. Level 1, 2, and 3, we have units of 1,086. Our bed count is 5,940. Level 4 beds, we're increasing capacity rapidly. For level 4 beds, 797 units and 3,256 beds. So we still have the most bed count in Broward County, and let's see, where's Palm Beach County? It's not on here. Oh, here we go. 3,576 bed count. So Palm Beach still holds the record as far as the amount of bed count that we have and over state capacity. Our trend, our growth trend, see July of 2017, we were at 3,280 beds. Now, again, February 2024, we're at 9,203 beds. We've increased our capacity since January of 2023 by 7.9%. We have 100 Palm Beach County numbers, 102 certified providers, 787 units, 3,576 beds. Out of those, 1,623 are men, 619 are for women, and for programs that have both men and women, we have 1,310 beds. LGBTQ beds, we have 24. Level 1, we have 7 programs and 30 units and 98 beds. Level 2, 65 programs, 327 units, 1,788 beds. Level 3, 5 programs, 37 units and 124 beds. Level 4, 41 programs, 392 units, 1,559 beds. Our overdose numbers throughout the state are unfortunately a 21.7% death rate. From January 23rd to January of 24, we have a total of 46 in FAR certified homes. Out of those, 41 were male, 5 were female, and 10 resulted in death. Our city reports break down as in Bradenton, we had 2 overdoses, 0 resulted in death. Boynton Beach, 1 overdose, 0 deaths. Clearwater, 1 overdose, 0 death. Coral Springs, 2 overdoses, 1 of them resulted in death. In Delray, we had 8 overdoses, 0 death. Fort Lauderdale, we had 8 overdoses, 2 death. Hollywood, 2 overdoses and 1 death. Jacksonville, 3 overdoses and 0 deaths. Lake Worth, 2 overdoses, 0 death. Miami, 2 overdoses and 1 death. Tampa, 2 overdoses, 0 deaths. West Palm Beach, 2 overdoses, 0 deaths. Oakland Park, 2 overdoses, 0 death. Pompano Beach, 7 overdoses, 4 resulted in death. Rockledge, 1 overdose, 1 death. St. Pete, 1 overdose and 0 death. And we're still showing records that the average age group seems to be in their 30s. Fentanyl seems to be the #1 drug of choice. And let's see. New York, there's 2 level, let's see, certification level 16, where the overdoses took place, and level 4, 6 of them, of the overdoses took place. State of origin, where the individuals are from: New York, there was 2, Georgia 2, Missouri 1, Ohio 1, North Carolina 1, unknown 39 cases. And the time in Florida, 45 candidates, we didn't know their time in Florida. And let's see, 3 months, as early as 3 months for the overdoses. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Heidi.
Thank you.
Any questions or observations from the task force?
Hi, this is Nancy.
Hi, Nancy.
Hi, sorry, I'm in my car. My question for Heidi is, which is recurring, when will we have numbers on how many beds in Palm Beach County accept all forms of mass?
We're working on that.
Okay, I understand that. Is there any timeline on this? Because there's a lot of houses, and we've gone over this. They say they take mass, but when we call or do a secret shopper call, what they're presenting and what they're actually doing are 2 different things.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
So,
and Nancy, we talked about
Yeah.
that before. It would be so helpful if you could send Heidi and I a list of who is telling you one thing and doing another, because it's hard for us to operate in a vacuum because we have some of the same information. So if you send us specific names of places, then we can do a lot more with that. And, you know, FAR is doing everything it can to educate and train people on MAD. It's certainly FAR's position that any recovery residents should accept Matt, if it's prescribed by the appropriate healthcare provider, et cetera, that is the policy and it's on our website. But unless we have specific instances, it's hard for us to know who to go talk to and who to help with this, because we want to get all the providers who may have concerns or they don't understand, we need to get them in the loop. So if you can send me that list, I would do something about it tomorrow.
I understand, and yes, we've had this conversation, and I don't want to repeat the same conversation. I'm asking for FAR to maybe make their website available where there just doesn't say a check for Matt, but which specific medications they do take.
Well, there should be no, Nancy, there should be no restrictions on any, because as far as I know, none of them have MD after their names. So again, that's why I keep saying it. I mean, it's hard for us to know if there are places that say they accept Matt and you're telling us it doesn't, then there's nothing I can do unless I know who they are. So that would be extremely helpful. And in our going forward, because we certainly want that to be available to anybody where it is appropriate for them to be on medication. I don't care what medication. If it's prescribed by their doctor and appropriate, then that's that.
If I can maybe put some clarity on this. We've had this struggle where people define Matt in different ways. We do have a piece of legislation that we'll be discussing, so we can continue this conversation then.
Excellent.
I think that Ms. McConnell Nancy makes a great point that you can't say you're Matt unless you're Matt. You can't accept Vivitrol and all of a sudden say we accept Matt and not accept the other forms of medication that is prescribed by licensed physicians or assistants. So I know FAR is working on it. I did have a couple of additional questions for Heidi. The spike in overdoses, do you feel that's due to better reporting from the recovery residences, or is there something else that you're seeing? Because I don't remember there being that many, even though it's a drop in the bucket as to the 9,200 beds. But 45 overdoses, I don't think we've had those numbers. Maybe I'm mistaken. What do you see there, Heidi?
No, I think it's better reporting. I definitely think it's better reporting.
Okay. Excellent. We also need better reporting of providers to DCF, because we're getting a lot of information of providers that are having overdoses using Narcan and not reporting it. So, okay. Do you see any, based on, we all saw the statistics on those five districts. There's an increase in certain places. Do you see areas of concern where there are very few beds? And if not, can you look into that before the next meeting and see if you can identify some areas of concern that are underrepresented by certified recovery residence beds? Because that could be contributing to the spike in overdose deaths in those areas, especially the West Coast, the Panhandle, and Duval County.
So
Yeah,
Al,
we
this
have
is
to-
Micah. I'll jump in there real quick, Al. So certainly looking at those areas of least need, we've actually created a statewide all-call for FAR. So once a month, we now have a group that comes together statewide for providers. The areas we're looking at right now, and I've physically been over to start the FAR tour, if you will, talking with providers, from Collier all the way up through Hillsborough, Pasco. At this point, I'll be heading back over to the West Coast, probably the Big Curl, getting for the big hike over to Pensacola and the Panhandle area. We do have very few residences, but there's discussions there to hopefully bring some more online. Not only there's the opportunity, maybe some uncertified, but just in general. But we're looking at some of the macro issues as well, especially in that part of the state with increased insurances, and we're talking property and homeowners, not to mention the other types. So we're taking a deep dive onto that, but we're looking specifically in that area, also bringing and adding capacity to FAR's decision-making with some West Coast participation with some new board members. So we're looking at all regions of the state, but certainly putting an eyeball towards the West Coast, especially in that Hillsborough Pasco area, where we have some tremendous providers already. But we know the capacity isn't where it needs to be because of, I mean, this is sort of unprecedented spikes in our current, with all the progress we've made. So it is definitely a high mark for FAR right now to be looking at that.
All right, Micah, and what are you, a CEO, COO, Chief?
I think that's what they're
Operations
calling me these days. I think we're going with CEO this week.
Okay, CEO this week. So, and anybody who did not know that, Micah Robbins been around this realm for years and years, a lot of experience, pretty good guy, and he plays bass guitar. So how can he possibly go wrong? But anyway, he's now.
At least I'm not a drummer.
If you can also call Micah if you have issues. Now, Micah, when you go on your tour around the state and you identify areas where the word on the street is that the providers are working the system and not using certified recovery residences, would you please let me know, but also more importantly, let the department know? And
yes,
we can talk about, and you all, I know you all are working with the department. So whoever your contact is, better to go directly, because while the department, unless it's a day-night with housing component license, the department doesn't regulate or oversee housing. That's what you all do. But they regulate and oversee the providers. And if the providers have their patients living in flop houses, they have the ability to fine the providers for each incident of referring or accepting referrals. We're working with the department in Southeast Florida with regard to locations that we're aware of. But I think the way to stop this and the way to get more people on board with FAR is to make it more costly and make it difficult for them to be able to go under the radar using subpar, housing that's not certified. So
absolutely. Now, I'll speak quickly to 2 points. One is the building a relationship on the ground with providers that we have now is a great way to figure out those systemic bystanders, if you will, to FAR certification. So we'll produce that as we get better information, but also just, again, being on the ground with providers and making those in-person relationships is really critical to the communication. The second part of that is that hats off to Josh and reaching out to DCF. We've had 2 good meetings so far with DCF in the Southeast region, and looking forward to Thursday's meeting with the acting director of licensing, who's coming down to join us for a meeting to talk about this exact topic. Our sort of go right now is that we're the eyes and they're the teeth, and we need them to use those teeth a lot more. So we have a few test cases in place, and we'll be continuing to build out the relationship with DCF.
Okay, thanks, Micah. Circling back to the original issue that was being discussed about Matt.
Yes.
Nancy put it up on chat, and she's correct. Consider, please, as FAR, to remove people on your website as accepting Matt if they don't accept Matt.
No, she's absolutely right, and that's one of the things that we have been looking at, and certainly I've been putting my eyeballs on as I've kind of jumped into this. 2 things on that. One is we're in the process right now of doing a reskin and overhaul of the website. One of the challenges we face is that it's an older piece. It has the pertinent information, but bringing that up to speed, and also moving. Well, I'll let Al talk about the legislation here in a minute. I'm not going to get into that, but again, putting more teeth where we need to, but also where it comes in is getting accurate information from providers. So that information, if you find out that someone says they are or not, we need to know. I can't reinforce that enough. We can update that information. But the other part of that is that we got to go working, with our providers. Some of it, even though the legislation may come in, it's still changing hearts and minds of some. So that takes a little time and education, but we are definitely working on it.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for the report, Heidi. Thank you for the work you're doing FAR. I mean, you guys are really the FAR of last year and the FAR of this year, I can't begin to thank you for the work that you're doing and expect that you'll continue it on. Let's move on now to what we're here for. The 24 legislative proposals will start. We're going to work the task force bill as 1180. One of the reasons is through some miscommunication, and there's no fault here. It just stuff happens in the middle of a session. Half of our bill got cut off on the House side, so they're adding it back on, but we haven't got that that from the staff yet, the committee staff. It is set for committee hearing on Thursday in the House, HB 1065, so we should have that information. SB 1180 was in Children, Family, and Elder Affairs today. And the good news is it passed unanimously for referral onward. The next will be in the next, I would imagine next week will be in the final committee, and then it'll get to the floor. But we have some trouble here. Can I take over this? Okay, thank you. All right. Why is it not scrolling? Oh, here we go. Okay. All right, the first section that we have in the 1180, it's in both bills. Okay, this is old school, isn't it? Let me go this way. Here we go. We are in trouble in the House on these the tourist taxes. The call I got from Representative Caruso, I am told that there's a $4.6 million impact on the state, which I find that hard to believe, $4.6 million. Maybe that's the total amount that's collected on the particular tax. I don't know, but we're looking into that. But quite frankly, applying these taxes to recovery residences, certified recovery, or any recovery residence, violates federal law. I mean, I can't think of another way to say it. Yep.
It's $4.6 million they shouldn't be collecting currently if they are. So I'm happy to go meet with Chair McLean to try to sort this thing out.
Okay, Zach, thank you for that. But I told Representative Caruso that we can't afford to kill the bill by having this not called up or voted down because they're saying they do not have that money. What we could do, which is half a loaf, is we could eliminate the state from this, and anybody who wants to sue them or a consortium that can sue them, the state, that is. But we have local taxes, which clearly we can save if we need to lose the state taxes. So I haven't looked at the various statutes here to see which ones are state, which ones are local. And we can probably change the language if need be. Now, Zach, if you can get them to do it, that's great.
I'll meet with him today.
Okay, I'm sorry, Zach, you had something else?
Yeah, I'll meet with Chair McLean today.
Okay, good. Anybody else want to comment about this? Oh, yeah, Tori, you raise your hand. Tori, please.
Yes, thank you. It's nice to be here. It's nice to know that after all these years that someone decided to finally calculate the contributions potentially, from what I'm hearing, of the recovery community to state and local coffers, considering all the consistent fights we've had to have regarding zoning and other reasons, and people pretty much kicking us down the street. But I think it's an interesting dynamic. And I feel that we should probably take a look at it, because if the local governments would like to cooperate with us regarding revenue streams, that the recovery community might be very pleased to sit down and have these discussions the way that local governments talk to hospitals and physicians and talk to ALFs and so many other participants within those revenue codes. And I think that maybe That's a larger discussion as well. And of course, we'd have to discuss the constitutional issues and the federal issues. But, if we all of a sudden matter to revenue contributions, that's an interesting conversation. So.
Well, that's the way to make lemonade out of lemons, for sure. But I think we can save most of this because we haven't gotten pushback. We really haven't, because this does not affect sales, business taxes, which everybody has to pay business taxes. So there's no discrimination. And that's a revenue stream for locals. But to their credit, we haven't had pushback on this from local government. And if we can save that in this bill, if we need to lose the state, and again, I agree with you, Tori, it violates federal law, and in some instance, you could say it violates the Constitution as well, but it's clearly the ADA and the Fair Housing Act. But anyhow, any other comments on this section? We'll move on. So to be determined on whether we can save or what we can save out of this line 65 to 72. This is in both bills, the House and the Senate. Okay, now let's go down to certified recovery residence definition. Had a little pushback on this from staff, but explaining to them that this is necessary, not only for current statutes, but also for future statutes, because one size doesn't fit all. Level 3 and a level 4 certified recovery residence is way different from a level 1, which is basically Oxford House, or a level 2, which is a longer term. It's just a different animal. The pushback we've gotten, I think we've resolved, or I've resolved with the House, but I don't know because I haven't seen the rest of the bill. But let's move down to community housing. Community housing is the future in one regard. When you're looking at level 4, it's something that we kind of have to carve out, because community house, as I see it, and please, correct me if I'm wrong, but putting it in the simplest terms, it's not just a level 4. It can be a level 3. It really is the use, as opposed to, what level you're at. But when somebody is required to live in a house while they go to treatment, that would be defined for a higher level of care, like intensive outpatient and on up, which would be level 3 and 4, even possibly level 2 on occasion. It's community housing. It just will fit better with legislation that we have coming down the pike, and with the legislation we have this year. A little bit of a pushback on that on the House side. I don't know what the bill is going to say, but I'm hoping that it'll be exactly like the Senate. Any comments on this? Any thoughts? Okay. Now, 397, 32120 has been deleted. It's been deleted by amendment today from the Senate bill. It will be deleted from the House bill. And the reason for that, some of you already know, is that the department has guaranteed or promised, or they're going to do what they need to do, and they want to do this to be more transparent and get things up on their website, kind of like ACA, like ACA, so that people, especially people who are out of state, who are looking for someplace to go, will be able to look on the website for the department and be able to navigate and see what's being offered by a particular licensed entity or licensed component. My understanding is they're going to add, for simplicity, so for naming and stuff, so people can navigate and find locations they're looking for. If there are multiple components at one site with one provider, they're going to put those together. I'm very excited with what the department is going to do, what they've told us that they're going to do, and this is better done by the department than done by statute. So, any comments? Anybody who disagrees, feel free to voice it now, but I think we've entered into a new understanding and a new age of cooperation with the department in terms of upping the delivery of services in this space in substance use disorder and opioid use disorder treatment. Okay, so that's done, that's gone. Now, getting a little pushback on the council, the Opioid Abatement Council. Unbeknownst to me, there was an agreement made between the Attorney General's office and the League of Cities and the Association of Counties. There were to be 5 members of this council that were state agencies or appointments from the legislature. And then there were 5 that were going to be local in nature by League of Cities and by the Association of Counties. Basically, that's what the agreement was. Then we came along, and I didn't hear any pushback on this, but there may be. We're still fleshing it out, and we've added effectively 7 more entities. If needs be, because the Opioid Abatement Council needs to be informed from professionals, from people in the field, from boots on the ground, from emergency EMT, emergency services, medical directors, those kind of entities, as to what's happening, where the resources are needed. If we need to, my opinion is to have these new members being added as non-voting members. If because of the agreement, there's a big pushback and trouble with having these being voting members. The idea is inform the council, not by 1-minute or 2-minute statements. There's no board certified psychiatrist, and Dr. Moran, I think you'll bear me out on this, is going to drive to Tallahassee for 1 minute to say something to the council when it becomes public comment. So this is a great thing to do. If it's a sticking point that they're voting, then non-voting will change the language, we'll amend it. Any comments about this? And by the way, what's not on the Senate side on this, it's been amended in, but not hasn't been amended for the Florida Certification Board. That I sent that to the Senate and it wasn't on there, so we're going to be asking they be put on. There
It
is
was
a
amended
pushback.
This morning, Al.
Yeah, Neil.
They did amend it this morning.
And they put you on?
Yep.
Okay. I thought I already sent that to them. Okay, good. So forget about that. There is a significant pushback regarding Florida Behavioral Health Association and the Florida Association of Managing Entities. Because they're ultimately downstream, they have a dog in the hunt as to where specifically the dollars are going. I don't think it's going to make it into the House bill. Those for UTA, I'm sorry, I tried.
That's quite all right, Al. Thank you.
But yeah, I mean, that's seems to be how it's going. Zach, you raised your hand. Go ahead.
I'm having trouble understanding the point of a non-voting member, I think.
Because the agreement was 10 voting members, 5 state, 5 local, I'm getting some pushback. Zach, you're in the area there. If you can put your ear to the rail and find out if this is going to be a problem. My conversation with this House staff, Senate's okay with this. There's no problem in the Senate, but in the House, it was a holdup for them that there was this agreement between the AG's office and the locals. I don't see it's a problem. It shouldn't be a problem because these are just recommendations. And it is a council. So my preference, Zach, is, and I think most people on the task force would be that they be voting members. But,
Yeah,
you know,
the legislature doesn't tie its hands based off of prior legislatures or attorney general deals. So I just have a little bit of trouble. I don't understand who's against this in the legislature.
well, it was the committee staff for the House.
Understood.
Okay. No particular legislature, nothing's been brought up. To my knowledge, Richard, I don't want to put you on the spot, and please don't feel the necessity to answer, but it was my understanding that there was no issue with the Attorney General, Moody. So,
Yeah, I don't see the attorney general really getting involved in this. I think more people at the table, especially within the industry, is a good thing. And if certain entities want more spots, then I'd be open to that conversation. But I don't think we should be boxing people out of this conversation.
Okay, well, Zach, I couldn't agree with you more. And I'm just reacting to the staff because they may not put it in the House bill or put it in there with non-voting. The end result, our preference would be to have full members, 9 through 15. Okay.
Hey, Al, just for everyone's awareness, so this part probably is a little out of my league. And if we wanted to, or you guys wanted to, you and Zach wanted to get a separate meeting with that I can help coordinate with one of the general counsel attorneys, they'd probably be in a better position to speak about what the AG may be willing to get involved or discuss.
Yeah, thank you,
Speak
Richard.
on her behalf when it comes to these type of issues.
Right, and Richard.
Because I'm not a lawyer, just so everybody knows. Like,
No, I gotta say, I was surprised. They didn't know that there was any problem with it in staff. So, I'm just reacting. I'm letting everybody know what's going on. Zach, you're in your boots on the ground. I'm gonna go at this point. I'm gonna say, hey, it's in. And we'll find out in the last committee stop or on the floor whether it's being held up. And I don't, I think I would have heard by now if there was an issue, other than the staff just assuming that there might be because of that letter between the locals and the AG. So I don't want to open up, I don't want to awaken something that doesn't need to be awoken. So at this point, Richard, don't feel the necessity to go up the food chain yet.
Yes, sir.
I'll call you. Let Zach, why don't you test the waters and see if we're okay? Sound good? And Susan, you have your hand raised.
I do, and I don't know whether, and I agree with everything everyone else said, and Zach, I agree with you, but on the other hand, I look at this as at least it's a first step, like the old half a loaf. I mean, that the other people who should be at the table, and I can speak for Dr. Simonides because I'm on the FSAM Public Policy Committee, at least get us up there and let's start talking. And if maybe next year we'll revisit it, but I think this is great. But if I can do anything to help get us all those people to be voting members, let me know. I'm happy to jump in.
Yeah, I'm very comfortable with Zach being point on this since he's there.
Perfect.
And
That's great.
I every year, and I love them to death because they're really good at what they do. I go round and round and round with the House staff committee. And it's, they always point out what ifs and the but fors. And so, I work off of that, but I understand it doesn't necessarily work because we have a Senate bill where it's in. So I'm hoping that's ultimately going to be the one that goes into messages and is accepted by the House, frankly, because we're a mess right now in the House bill because there are all these, we don't even know what the House bill says because it's a half a bill right now. Okay, any other comments on this? We'll move on.
Thank you, Al.
Right, well, my pleasure. Okay, let's move on to, this would be section 5 of the Senate bill. When we deleted this this is probably now section 4. And this has to do with 397, 487. So there's a bunch of stuff in here. Number one, in all the appropriate places, certified recovery residences who have to lose their there's administrators. They now have 90 days instead of 30. And the compromise with Representative Caruso was it shall, it's not may. And so you got a 90-day period to get somebody. Now, you know, if somebody's charged with a crime, and I had some lobbyists contact me, and they were concerned. But this really inures to the benefit of the providers, because this is how it works. If somebody's arrested for a crime, we have to file, we mean in the state attorney's office, within 30 days. Or then we have to no file within 5 or 10 days after that. A no file means we're not filing charges. If we don't file charges, the way that the wording changes, okay, and I'll go down to lines 228 is arrested and awaiting disposition. If the disposition is a no file or dismissal or null pros, then and it's within 90 days, then the provider can rehire that certified recovery residence administrator if indeed they will let go because of the arrest. So it's a win-win where you have, but if we didn't have that and awaiting disposition, which tracks line 231, 435.042, it's the same language in the disqualifiers section. So we're just adding what's already in statute, so there's no confusion. And so anytime if a case is dropped, that's a disposition. And that person can then go back and make a living as a CRRA, because the case isn't pending anymore. All right, any questions on that? Okay, lines 218 to 226. Again, the House staff, and it's true, it is true in a way. I mean, there's a slight variation, but because it's specific to the increase in numbers of that you can manage. But they claim that they say that 218 to 226 is duplicitous. It's redundant, and it's already in B up above, because you got 3 business days and then you got 90 days. It's the same. We're not going to die on this hill. It may be removed from the House bill. We'll see what bill gets to the floor. But I'm just letting everybody know that I anticipate the House bill, when it does come out, is going to remove those lines. Any comments or questions? Okay. Plain as mud. All right. And again, awaiting disposition. I think, well, it's interesting that the credentialing entity may revoke. I have no problem leaving that in there if that's what the Senate bill is. But it's most of these have been changed to shall because of the 90-day extension. So that may be amended to shall. Okay, moving down to, okay, here's where the rubber meets the road. 13, 251 to 256. Notice the date that it is enforced is January 1, 2025. This is to give FAR a chance to educate. But make no mistake about it, and I was looking in at the SAMHSA best practices, and I was also looking in at the HUD DOJ letter. There's an analogy in there. I believe to not allow MAT, which is now a best practice and also federally approved medication that is through a physician or a physician's assistant or advanced practice nurse practitioner. I think that violates ADA and FHA. It violates it the same way as if an African American is told he can't live there, because it is specifically targeted toward a person who's protected by the ADA and the FHA, saying you can't live here. Now, what it says is solely on the basis. So it may be inappropriate in a level 2 for somebody who just had an overdose and got a prescription for buprenorphine from the addiction stabilization unit to then go and say, you have to take me in your level 2, which is not attached to treatment, but is a long-term there can be reasons why you don't want to take somebody who has just been placed on MAT, on buprenorphine, say, or methadone. But if anybody's in a program, and especially intensive outpatient for a level 3 and 4, I just can't see the reason that you can, but if there is another basis, they'd have to state that basis, and FAR, you would be the one to look at this, because, this is law. You have to accept MAT. I got pushback from the abstinence only folks. I explained it. Look, this is a year and a half away almost. Education is the key, but it's against federal law. You're violating federal law by doing this. We have to go together. Abstinence and MAT need to join hands. The technical term is I get shit for this on a weekly basis from somebody who doesn't like this section, but we have to start moving forward, arm in arm. Abstinence you can have abstinence and you can have MAT together. We have to figure out a way. Now I've got to get off my soapbox. Any comments or questions on this? It's in both bills. There has been some pushback, but I've been able to calm it down. Some lobbyists called me up and they said, well, that makes sense. Okay, we're good. Anybody, anything?
Yeah, this is Nancy again. The one thing, and I'm sorry, one of my staff members came in, so you may have already said this, is the providers dictating the dosage of the medication.
Well, I don't, first of all, I believe they're violating the law if they do that, because you can't dispense or you can't prescribe.
Yes.
So that's something that FAR is going to have to, in their policies and procedures, work out. That's not something I think that belongs in statute. I mean, we could have put it in there. It's really too late to add anything. We don't want to call attention to the section any more than we have to. But
no, I appreciate
you are right. Titrating is not the job of the provider. Their medical director, well, we may have a conversation about that, and we may have to come back next year. But this is going to put us in a much better position, because at least they can come in the door with the maintenance that is best practice, SAMHSA recommended for housing. Okay. All right. Any other comments? All right. 14 is the bane of my existence. Okay. I cannot tell you how much pushback I'm getting on this. I think we're going to have to sunset this, and I know that this originally came from, and we'll have the bill, the additional bills, 1636 and 1583, where it was contemplated that there'd be a long-term council that would be studying the issue. Still may happen after, next year, but this was kind of out of that to like stop this, because it is being used to discriminate. It could be used not to discriminate if they had reasonable accommodation. There's a lot of nuances here if it applies to everybody, but my understanding from boots on the ground, people who are in zoning, is that there's some municipalities that are using this to prevent any recovery residents from coming into multifamily zoning districts, because their duration of stay is 30 days or 6 weeks, because that's the programs that they're involved in. So I'm hoping that, Zach, the guy in Tallahassee tells me that we're going to be able to get this through. I don't want this to kill the bill personally, and we won't let it. But I think we may put in there a sunset on this, because that was what it was originally contemplated on the other bills that were longer term. So we may sunset this, say, in July 1st, 26 or January 1st, 27 or something like that. So any questions or comments on this?
This is Dr. Simonidis. Can I make a comment about earlier about recovery residents not accepting people on MAT? And because that by itself is a medical decision, and they're making medical decisions, and they are almost forcing the resident not to comply with their medical recommendations.
And Doc, that's why we have this section, because they can't do it when this passes. A recovery residence, and it doesn't, not only certified, but all recovery residences, they can't do it solely on that basis. So they would have to come up with a reasonable, articulable reason, like the example I gave of somebody wanting to go into a house that's inappropriate level for the state of their addiction and recovery. Okay, but by and large, unless they have another reason, that's what that's meant to do. It's a physician's decision. MAT is a best practice under SAMHSA, and under, I believe, ASAM and FSAM. And so you can't discriminate. So yeah, agree with you 100%. And that's why it's in there to stop, to change the attitudes. It's kind of like a bit of a stick for the carrot of, come on, opioid use disorder is different. This is we're dealing with a different animal in 2024 than was back in 1999 or even 2010. But anyway, yes, agreed. Any other comments? On 14,
Al, this is Mark Schlosser.
Oh, yes.
Just semantics on 13. I've never heard the term federally approved medication. That doesn't really define it. It's FDA approved medication.
Well, this would be read the same way.
Okay.
The approval for medication in the federal side is FDA. So federally
FDA is federal, yeah.
It's really another way of saying the same thing.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Let's move on down to the next, which would be the last series of sections, which is in this bill, which is recovery residence administrators. Again, we've got the awaiting disposition, so that if a case is dropped, then the CRRA is now can get hired, either back to the original position or to a new position. Okay, 90 days, again, within 90 days. Okay. Now we're dealing with 288 and to the end of the legislation. Level 4 certified recovery residents with community housing component. Again, we're talking about community housing, where it's actively managed by a certified recovery residence administrator. Okay, approved for 100 residents. We're expanding that to potentially 150, and that would be FAR that would do that. And then we have we need to have heightened oversight. So we have the ratio of 1 to 8 provider personnel to patient, and then 1 to 10 your supervision 24/7 with a 1 to 10 ratio employee to resident. So we have the 1 to 8 for the patient and the 1 to 10 for the resident. Okay, and again, if the recovery residence administrator is let go, they go back to 50 until and unless they're approved by FAR. Any questions about this section?
Yeah, Al, I have a question. It's Jeff.
Yeah, Jeff.
Can you go lines 288 and 289? I try to bring this up. Doesn't make sense.
Okay.
There's no such thing as a level 4 certified house with a community housing component. That's like saying an apple with a streetcar. It just doesn't make sense. It's a level 4 certified recovery residence acting at, or whatever. I've given language before. I don't know why it keeps popping up this way, but that 288 and 289 make no sense.
I'm going to look at the my recommended changes, because I know that I asked them to amend this section, and it was in response to a conversation I had with you. Give me 1 second to see whether they didn't. Again, this is what the language is here in front of me. Wait, first let me look at the amendment. See what the language is there. I think it might have changed it today. Okay. It still says level 4 certified recovery residents operating as community housing. Now, it's kind of like going back and forth because
But that's okay.
housing,
By the way, but Al, that's okay though. That's okay. A level 4 sort of acting as, that's okay too. It just.
okay, yeah, we did change it. Unfortunately, the
Okay,
amendment I
okay.
got today, Jeff, the amendment I got was cut off at the end, and I let them know that it cut off at line 149, and it should have gone on 149 of the amendment. You all have that amendment in your packet. I don't know why it was cut off, and it may have been actually reinserted and accepted today. I'll find out. When I get the bill, I'll send it out to everybody, the new bill. And that would have that new language. That does have an amendment, and that was based on our conversation, Jeff. So,
yeah, I know what they're trying to say. It just doesn't make sense the way it's written. You know what I mean? But they're saying the right thing. Just so everyone knows, when they say a community housing component, they're mentally referring to a license that has a housing component, right? They're saying a level 4 that has a level 4 component. It's basically what they're saying, right?
Yeah.
It's just well-intentioned.
That language is out, Jeff. That language is out, and it will say operating as community housing as defined. So,
that's fine.
Okay.
Perfectly good. Thank you.
Good. Thanks for bringing that up because yeah, it was changed. Okay. Any other thoughts, questions about SB 1180, which is the companion to the House bill that should be close after the staff puts it in. And again, we have to figure out, my thought is that the Senate bill be adopted, passed first and adopted in messages, but we'll see what happens. And thank you, Zach, for all the help you've been in Tallahassee on this bill. Thank you. All right, let us move on to all right, number 4. Actually, no, I'm sorry, number 3B, SB 1636 and HB 1583. Now, I don't know if those two, if either one of them are really moving. You know, and it's not, you know, it basically, we've never discussed that concept of having a council for recovery residences. And I just wanted to give an opportunity for anybody who wanted to chime in and talk about either its necessity, because ultimately we may be revisiting this in the next year or two. And I just wanted to give an opportunity so that anybody who wanted to chime in on what it is, why it is, and what the concept is can have that opportunity. And I open up to anybody who raises their hand. And if nobody raises their hand, well, we'll just move on. Okay, Terrell, go ahead.
Hi, Al. Thank you. So within Senate Bill 1636, there is a reference in lines 80 to 84 about the advisory council, once it's established, shall also conduct a review of statewide zoning codes to determine what effect, if any, local laws shall have on the ability of the private sector licensed service providers to provide modern evidence-based effective treatment, et cetera, et cetera. It seems to me that to set up an advisory council to study housing in this context seems to be a little bit, I don't want to say in conflict, but somewhat so with the proviso that was adopted by the legislature last year, proviso number 1901, which provided for funding for Dan Lauber to perform a statewide study through the Florida Institute of Government. And so even the conversation or the suggestion that this may come up again later, I'm trying to figure out how those two facts work together. The statewide study that's being undertaken through the proviso that was funded last year and the Florida Institute of Government through Florida State University that the task force had supported, and then also this advisory council.
Sorry, before I hand it over to Tori, he's got his hand up. The way I see it, Terrell, is that I agree with you. The time is not right for this because we have not tried and failed what we're trying to do now. there may come a time in the next couple of years where either we cannot get municipalities to adopt a model ordinance that we come up with. In which case, well, maybe we need to study further to see where we're heading with that. Yes, we are in the midst of and we're going to talk about this. At least we're going to start the conversation, because I'm actually optimistic that much of the goals, and their district goals, of consistency, transparency, to eliminate discrimination, and to have local government be educated and on the same page, is something that we can do, we can accomplish. Maybe not in it perfectly, but we can accomplish, 60, 70% of where we were trying to go, maybe even more. So I'm all in. We already have the study is already commissioned. And everybody will have input, because we'll be, one of the reasons we're starting the conversation today, and the reason I know I'll get you out of here early, is because it's not going to be a long conversation, because we don't have much to discuss yet. We have a lot to think about and then come back with. But by the end of the summer, no later than August, we have to have model legislation. We cannot wait and do this like we've done some of the legislation and have it in on the 11th hour. We cannot do that this time. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Tori and then to Jeff Lynn. Tori.
Yes. So I think that in context, if you go before starting at number 80 and you go all the way back up to who this is composed and comprised of, and you look at the overall intent, it's adding a welcome, if you will, to a current study that Al's already talking about, that you talked about, Terrell. And this is saying, hey, this industry has matured quite a bit. There is a lot of extraordinary professionalism and competency that has been moving forward within this industry. A lot of involvement, FAR's overhaul, the way that ACA and DCF are moving forward, the way that the task force is advancing. So having an extra, more what I would say inclusive study regarding so many other representatives from the state of Florida is an extraordinarily important goal that doesn't take away from the study that was done last year. It just simply says, hey, we're going to add something else to study such an extraordinarily important issue. And when you're talking about not housing, but zoning codes, I think a lot of people want to have a say that have a lot to say. And we all know that, right? When you're talking about something as such an extraordinary issue as zoning codes and behavioral health and mental health and recovery residences that go into it, and 67 counties within the state of Florida, representing, almost 23 million people in one of the fastest growing states in the nation still to this day. A lot of people have many things that they're going to contribute to this. So I wouldn't take this as a, hey, knocking one study out, we're just including more. And so I think it should be looked at in that context, so we can all have a little bit extra to put our teeth into.
Hey, thank you, Tori. All right, Jeff, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I do. Thank you, Al. Can you all hear me okay, by the way?
Yep.
I had to switch audio devices. I'm in Chicago right now for something where Dan Lauber lives, and we're actually trying to get together for lunch and see each other and hang out a little bit. I just wanted to give everyone who's here just a quick 3-second idea of what generally the concerns are overall. And Terrell, of all people, would also appreciate this. Terrell, when she was city attorney of Delray Beach, helped shepherd through the first Dan Lauber ordinance in the state, I believe. And we were all very happy that was occurring. We saw it as progressive and open-minded. But what Terrell and I experienced right away at what's called a conditional use hearing, when you try to cite a sober living residence within 660 feet of another, is the cities, the boards are very clear that they've paid an individual lots of money in order to limit sober living residences in their city. I remember looking at Terrell looked at me. I tabled that hearing because we were getting nowhere. But that was back in 2017, 2018. It's now 2024. And a week and a half ago, I was in Pompano Beach for a family recovery residence, people that can live there as long as they want in long-term recovery. And I had to go through a conditional use hearing again that staff supported. Dan Lauber even reviewed my application just to make sure that I was saying the right things. And the board said, Mr. Lynn, thank you, but we paid a lot of money, quote, we paid a lot of money to a consultant to limit sober living in our city, and we see no reason why to waive the 660-foot rule at all, period, full stop. I'm just bringing up to everyone's understanding is what we like to call the law of unintended consequences, which I know in this group is something we talk about a lot. We have to be very careful with legislation we pass because of unintended consequences. So I just want to let everyone know that may not care about zoning or housing or whatnot, but the ability to provide this essential housing is under attack by cities, because at the end of the day, people don't want to live next to addicts. Full stop. That's what I hear, because I'm on the ground. I'm the one taking the bullets. I'm the one getting the spears in the back. I'm the one getting spit on, literally, because I represent addicts. And I try to explain what's going on. If anyone wants to see a link to the hearing and see everything that was said and done, and then sit there in shock about how this board was very easy to discriminate. So I personally am looking forward to the proviso housing study, but I will continue to express my concerns that no matter what it says or does, cities are out there to make sure sober homes are not in their cities. And I don't say that pejoratively. I don't say it to be mean. It's fact. It's just a fact. I'm the one on the front lines that I can tell you that's a fact. And so if we're going to continue down this road of studies and whatnot, we do need a more robust examination of zoning in the state so that we could find the most appropriate places for sober living residences, levels 1 through 4, in our cities and in our counties. And I'd hope that this group, in addition to others, would agree with that, because we're going backwards with sober living. We really are when it comes to zoning. And that's why I'm fully supportive of the limited preemption in multifamily zoning districts. Because if we can't put sober living in multifamily zoning districts, then where's it going to go? Institutional zoning? Somewhere else, not next to me? So I just ask that the people that aren't really paying attention to zoning and those things because they're doctors or they're SM, to also pay attention to the fact that doctors and people here, if you could provide surgery but had no safe place for your patients to recover, I think that people here would be equally up in arms. And I'd like to think that as we start to merge addiction medicine with recovery and recovery residential housing as sought by SAMHSA and ASAM, that this entire group, even if you're not in the recovery space or the housing space, would understand that everyone has a vested interest to make sure that zoning works for everybody, including those who need this most essential service. So thank you for letting me speak on that point.
Okay, Jeff, thank you. Terrell?
Thank you. So I just want to say that to the extent that we end up revisiting this at some point in the future, if it doesn't pass this year, I do think there needs to be a seat at the table for a representative or multiple representatives from the Florida League of Cities and Florida Association of Counties, people that have some zoning experience and would have the ability to provide an opinion as it relates to those local jurisdictions. That my hope and my intent, to the extent that I have even the tiniest bit to do with it, would be that we have the ability to work together through this statewide zoning study and create model legislation that works for everybody. And that may require education to cities, counties, and the public. And I think that we can do that, but we're not going to get there if we don't work together and we keep operating in different silos. That's all.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
A couple of things. Number one, yeah, there is a flaw in the bill this year because you're eliminating a critical stakeholder. But these are, again, I said at the beginning, I'm not against the concept. We already have something in place. Let's give it a chance. Now, I want to put up a document. You all remember what a help in terms of Fair Housing Act and the ADA that that HUD and DOJ have been. You know, after reading their joint statements, it's like clear as mud. But something that Terrell said, and I want to read page 17. I just actually want to put it up on the screen. You got it in your attachments. But I think, and I agree with Terrell, that the key here is education, and the key here is reasonable accommodation and what it means and what we need to do. And there's something really informative on 17. It's so important that I really want to just, I want to let it sink in. I'm going to read it. This is to me the critical thing where we're disconnecting with local government and with you know, providers that are just trying to help people that have that have SUD. Let me get to 17 here. All right. There we are. Okay. All right. Start with here. DOJ and HUD nevertheless strongly encourage local governments to adopt formal procedures for identifying and processing reasonable accommodation requests and provide training for government officials and staff as to the application of the procedures. This is critical. What you're complaining about, Jeff, is exactly this. You got people on these zoning boards that think because they've adopted Dan Lauber zoning ordinance that they don't have to reasonably accommodate, and Dan's hair is on fire because that's not true, and he's telling them it's not true. So what we need to do is we need to come up with these best practices, okay? A formal procedures for identifying and processing reasonable accommodation. I think that would be incredibly improve the landscape. The procedures for reviewing and acting on reasonable accommodation requests will help state and local governments meet their obligations under the Act to respond to reasonable accommodation requests and implement reasonable accommodation promptly. So no matter what the code is, you still have to reasonably accommodate if it's got to be the least restrictive. Local governments are also encouraged to ensure that the procedures to request a reasonable accommodation or other exception to local zoning regulations are well known throughout the community. Again, Terrell brought this up. Educate the community. By, for example, posting them at a readily accessible location and in a digital format accessible to persons with disabilities on the government's website, but I also add to the public, to the good citizens with their pitchforks and their torches. If a jurisdiction chooses to adopt formal procedures for reasonable accommodation requests, the procedure cannot be onerous or require information beyond what is necessary to show that the individual has a disability and that the requested accommodation is related to that disability. For example, in most cases, an individual's medical record or detailed information about the nature of a person's disability is not necessary, et cetera, et cetera. Officials and staff must be aware that any procedures for requesting a reasonable accommodation must also be flexible to accommodate the needs of individuals. And of course, individuals make group homes, including and considering requests that are not made through official procedure. Well, yeah. One thing that should never, ever happen is that a local government charge $5,000 to an applicant for a reasonable accommodation, for a variance, you know, or a usage that's not permitted. You know, that takes education and it takes procedures. I think half of what will clean up the misperceptions on the part of these zoning ordinances that do, for the first time, create a placement as a matter of right, a permitted use. And I'm in the process of trying to get some statistics to show, you know, we're looking at the ones that are being denied and in many cases, not rightfully denied. You know, oh, you're 5 feet under, you know, the 650 feet. So we're going to deny you because you're not 650 feet. That's not reasonable accommodation. Okay. But by the same token, we need to move along with local government. If we go this alone, you can put together 10 councils that make best practice recommendations. If local government is not is not involved, it ain't going to get through. I had a hard time with that length of stay. I mean, a really hard time about that because from the legislators, the legislators themselves saying this is preemption. And if they think that's preemption, just saying that in a multi-district family district, you can't regulate the length of stay for recovery residents, certified recovery residents, if they think that's preemption, what are they going to think about an ordinance that says we can locate as many as we want anywhere we want? So we really got to get together on this. Again, I see, Tori, you have your hand raised, please.
Yes, just to clarify, and Terrell, thank you for your input, and obviously, Al and everybody. I would say that cooperation is probably a really solid watchword for everybody involved, and I would tell you that I don't see anybody having said anything to the effect that there wouldn't want to be. And so I would hope that everybody understands the intention and that the context of this is we can't have all of us agreeing that cooperation is appropriate while there's still some municipalities acting also in the way that might be accused of not wanting to cooperate. So I think the way that we're going about this is probably the easiest way to highlight what needs to be done, incorporate good decisions, and bring people to the table that are important into this discussion that have good intentions. And so I think we're all sitting in a bunch of boats, all kind of in the same river, trying to figure out why one boat is trying to sink another while others are trying to help people ashore. So I think that everybody has to kind of maybe shoot the flare gun off a little bit. And this is, to my context, the flare gun saying, hey guys, we need to swim over here. We need to all sail this way, and let's see what that means. So I appreciate the comments, Terrell and Al, and I think that cooperation, again, is something that everybody wants.
Yeah, and Tori, from me personally, I don't want anybody to get the idea that I didn't think this was a thought out piece of legislation. It wasn't vetted, but that's okay. That's neither here nor there, because we have plenty of time to go back if necessary to see whether we do need this. I mean, we already have the best practices. We know from SAMHSA what the best practices are. And we also know from HUD DOJ what the best practices are, to have a vibrant, reasonable accommodation so that people with disabilities, are not discriminated against. And I agree that there are a number, especially those local municipalities that are kind of borrowing from the Delray model or the Pompano model, and they're just taking what they like and leaving off what they don't like, and especially not educating their attorneys need to know this stuff, and their boards, planning and zoning boards, need to know this stuff, and they need to have a procedure for reasonable accommodation so that Jeff doesn't wind up his head exploding when people are saying stupid stuff, and then the other hand, the municipality is being ripe for a lawsuit. And I've got some ideas I want to share with FAR, but I'm not going to do it at the meeting here. I'm going to float it. And, I do think that when a municipality does something like that, they ought to be taken to court or something, or arbitration if that's the first step. But anyway, we're moving on, and we kind of segued in. A lot of what we're discussing right now is really the C, beginning a discussion of a 2025 model zoning ordinance legislation. And I put down single family districts, multifamily districts, because they are different animals. And I know that any ordinance is going to have to take that into consideration. But we're not here today, which is why I know I'm getting you out early. We're not here today to shred this, to really brainstorm on this. What today's purpose was to go over the existing legislation, and this was added just to say everybody needs to think about this. What provisions need to be in, especially the people that have helped in the past with writing legislation. How how are we going to write this? You know, how do we do a model zoning, enactment? It's going to have to be voluntary. So we need the carrot and stick somehow. And my contribution today is to really concentrate on training and procedures, so that reasonable accommodation, which is the key here, where Jeff is getting, his head is exploding. And I've talked, Jeff, you know, you and I have talked about this, about some of the things, the wacky things that these zoning boards are doing. Because there's no, not formality is the wrong word, there's no consistency. You know, there's no template for this. So we have to provide and maybe even require, you know, perhaps we can't require that they adopt a specific zoning ordinance. We can say this is voluntary, but this is best practice recommended. But certainly we may be able to say, but you are going to have policies and procedures for a reasonable accommodation that are in keeping with the Americans with Disabilities Act and Fair Housing Act. And that would be a huge step forward. So, you know, anybody want to say something that they've been thinking about in broad terms as to what needs to be included? When we're not getting down to minute, but really start thinking about writing, you know, how we're going to write this, how it's going to be. And again, I'm targeting the end of August, when we are done with what would be a, you know, final draft, say, so we can at least give it to our two supporting legislators, and give them reasons for sponsoring this and pushing this for 2025. Go ahead, Jeff. You have your hand up or no?
No.
Oh, no. Okay. Anybody want to add to this? Again, this was really just, hey, everybody start thinking. Put your thinking caps on. We're going to meet next month in a regular meeting, which, you know, is just going to have this as a small portion. But then it probably, when this session is over, and right around the time that the study is due, probably in June, we're going to have a meeting dedicated to nothing but, okay, let's hear ideas. Let's start putting together ideas. Where do you think we should go with this, that, and the other? Okay, and so to the extent that anybody wants to write something up in the next couple of months, it'd be helpful. Any thoughts on the whole shebang? Can I get back to the screen, the regular screen? I can't see everybody, so. Okay, I see no hands raised. Anything for the good and welfare? Ye of little faith, it is not even 3 o'clock and we're done. Again,
Yes, we gotta come in March then.
yeah, we'll see you next month. And thank you so much. Feel free to read everything that we sent you. I think it's really informative to read what the HUD DOJ says. And oh, Terrell, and this is for you and Dan, and for you, Jeff Lynn. Send me, if there's a synopsis of the case law that you know of or have created, I'd love to see it, so that when we reconvene on this issue, you know, we can have that, okay, this is the majority opinion, this is the minority opinion, this is where these lawsuits have been successful because of what these municipalities or counties have been doing. But we are going to have to go in armed with the case law, you know, the law. We have HUD DOJ, which is helpful, but we're going to have more than that when I talk to staff and talk to the legislators. Okay. So Nancy, you have your hand up. You'll be the last word.
Okay, real quickly, I wanted to tell everybody that Rebel Recovery is opening its new site out in Belglade. We are getting all the final touches in the office, and we will have a grand opening soon, and I will let everybody know the date probably in the next month.
Thanks, Nancy. Do you
We'll be out there? We're already out there.
Are you there at the drug court graduations? Do you personally come there?
No, we used to be a part of the drug court and we haven't been there in a while. We are in ECC, Early Childhood Court, and Family Treatment Court.
Okay. We have a very positive, aggressive judge on drug court, Judge Haffel, who is very invested in making it work. And so I'm going to go to the graduation on, I think it's February 25th,
22nd.
The next
22nd.
graduation. So I'll be there. Invite anybody who wants to be and watch people successful graduates of the drug court program.
Thank you.
Anyhow, anything else for the good and welfare? Ariana, would you let us know how Delray is doing? Not statistic wise, but your eyes, your boots on the ground. How are we doing in Delray?
We're trekking along just like everybody else. I actually did have my numbers handy just in case you asked me for last year. I did last year's number, we had 202 overdoses that came through the police department. There was definitely more overdoses in the city that had gone by fire rescue and had gone to the emergency rooms. The deaths were significantly up.
Yeah.
And that's really much it. I'm seeing the same thing as far as the drugs. I saw a couple of xylazines. I didn't see any xylazine the whole year. And then the last few months of the year, a couple of xylazines crept through.
What do you think, Ariana, what do you think the reason is? Because Palm Beach County in general looks like it's going down around 4% this year. Well,
Yeah.
what do you think's happening in Delray that caused it? And what kind of spike did you see? Was it significant or
The deaths?
Yeah.
Well,
from
in 2022, we had 30 deaths, and in 2023, we had 44 deaths.
Oh,
I think the mixture of the drugs that was in things that people didn't expect it to be in, I think that was a lot of it. Like, I think a lot of people had a lot of street molly and things with fentanyl in it. And I saw a lot of those deaths this year. I had a couple of people, I don't know, and a lot of people using alone and not having someone there to call. We found a lot of people alone in apartments behind locked doors, which we don't really see that. We weren't seeing a lot of that because we were pushing Narcan and using in groups for so long and getting out there and being like, don't use alone, don't lock your doors. But I saw a lot of that last year as well. We had 1 month where there was 10 deaths. So it was February of last year.
Wow.
It was a bad month.
Wow.
And that spiked everything up.
Well, it's interesting you should bring up the street drugs that one would not normally think had fentanyl in them. And John Hewlick, John, you remember you had a presentation by the DEA for your group, the county task force and advisory group. And 1 kilo, I'll leave you with this. This is a summary thought. 1 kilo of fentanyl is enough to put a potentially, not an absolute, but a potential deadly dose in 500,000 street pills. 500,000 street pills. We will never end this problem with interdiction. I'm a prosecutor, and I've known that for years, but especially with something that's as potent as fentanyl and such a small quantity being introduced can pollute so many street pills, so many counterfeit pills. So sorry to leave you with that, but thank you so much again, and we'll see you next month for the regular meeting. I'll cross your fingers. Zach, I'm leaning on you, buddy. You're doing a great job for 1180 and 1065. And thank you, Tori, as well for that.
Can you remind us
Hey,
what
Al,
the date
before
is?
we went off,
Thank you, everybody.
Hey, Al, remember we had the DEA on a couple months ago and they did that great presentation?
Right.
If we could do that, something like that again in the upcoming months, I think that really was useful, really informative.
Well, I don't want to repeat,
No, if it's updated. If it's not updated, no. I'm just saying if anything, nothing's changed, no. But that was really eye-opening for everybody, I think.
Okay, all right. Well, thanks for the recommendation, Jeff. Okay, Have a great week and weekend, everybody. We'll see you
What's the date of the next meeting?
March 13th.
March
Thank you.
13th. Close to the Ides of March.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.